Okay, next comment is coming from Thomas. Thomas, thank you for the comment. It says Medicare will get half of the COLA increase. And what I think you meant to say is that is wrong. And I agree with you. Now, when we're talking about Medicare, we're talking about COLA. Yes, you are correct. When it comes to COLA, every year we see a cost of living adjustment. In some cases, it's high. Some cases, it's not. When it comes to Medicare, every year the premium goes up. And so even though in situations like this, the projections right now is COLA is going to be about 2.6 or 2.7%. That's what the projections are out there right now. But when we look at Medicare, the premium is going to go up. So let's say you get an additional, for the average person, let's say they see an additional $50 in the COLA increase. Well, guess what? Medicare is going to take about half of that. They're talking about right now it's going to be about $20, somewhere around that number. And so Medicare premium goes up, even though you get the cost of living adjustment. The cost of living adjustment, how can it keep up with inflation if you're paying a little bit more for Medicare? So they're not taking that in consideration. And what they should be doing is they should take that in consideration. Whatever Medicare goes up, whatever that premium goes up, you should still get that percentage above that. So with the cost of living adjustment, so in a situation like this, they should say, okay, the premium for Medicare is going to go up $20. We don't take that in consideration when we do the calculations for the cost of living adjustment. So basically what I'm saying is give a credit for $20 so it doesn't affect the money that you're going to be receiving in the cost of living adjustment. Now we know in October, that's when they'll I think it's October 15th, that's when that information will come out when it comes to COLA. But the problem with COLA is it doesn't keep up with inflation. And so the reason why you have the cost of living adjustment is to keep up with inflation. But if it's not doing the right job, then that's when they need to make some adjustments. And part of it is premiums. That's a big part of it. And then the other part of it is you can't really predict. So right now they're talking about COLA for 2026, but we don't know what 2026 is going to look like. It could be a situation where inflation goes down even below the cost of living adjustment, which is good, but you still have to take into consideration Medicare, or we could be in a situation where inflation goes up even higher. And now you have to look at the cost of living adjustment and you see that the dollar that, the cost of living adjustment, that percentage that you received is not keeping up with inflation. And so not only are you in that situation with Medicare, but you also see, let's say you get a 2.6% COLA increase, but then inflation next year is at 4% or at 5%. Well, now not only the Medicare issue you have to deal with, but you also have to deal with the issue that the cost of living adjustment just did not keep up. And so they have to make changes when it comes to the cost of living adjustment. One thing they talked about is changing from the CPIW to the CPIE, so the CPI for the elderly instead of wage earners and clerical staff, which makes sense because it will reflect how elderly people spend money. So that's one thing they can do, but that's still not going to be enough. They actually need to provide some type of an increase to get people up to where the cost of living really is. And until they do that, we're going to see these small cost of living increases. And the only time we'll see a large cost of living increase will be when we see inflation at all-time highs. And so we don't want to get to a point where we're seeing inflation at all-time highs just to get this cost of living adjustment. And even in that situation, if you see a 5.7 or 8.7% COLA increase, guess what? That means things are really, really expensive. And so, yes, Thomas, you are correct. When it comes to the cost of living adjustment, in some situations, Medicare takes a lot of that. Okay, next comment is coming from Pam. Pam, thank you for the comment. And she says, he will put someone else as head of the BLS, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Then they'll just lie about inflation. We'll have no way of knowing. And then the COLA will go lower. Okay, so just getting you guys up to speed when it comes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics was just fired by the president. And the president said he didn't like the numbers from the jobs report. And so that's why he fired her. Now we need a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The problem is the president will appoint someone new, and that person, will they be loyal to the president or loyal to the American citizen? And so the fear right now is July, August, and September. Those are the 3 months that they're going to use to calculate COLA for 2026. And so this is the worst time for us to see a situation like this, because we're going to have a new head that's coming in during this time period. And will we see the correct information when it comes to COLA? Will we still see that information, or will that head, because even right now they're going to have someone that's going to be an acting head, will that person be too afraid to say, okay, this is what the real numbers look like when it comes to inflation? Because understand, presidents don't want inflation high. They want inflation low. The Federal Reserve also wants inflation low. And there's an incentive to have inflation under 2%, because the Federal Reserve has indicated that they want it to be around 2%, and then they could start cutting interest rates. What has the president been talking about for the last year? Cutting interest rates. Even before he became president, he said that we should be cutting interest rates. And so there's an incentive for the new person, or the acting person over BLS, to get that inflation down to around 2%. And so we'll have to see if that happens. But Pam is correct. When it comes to the cost of living adjustment, we might see it lower than what it actually is. And that's just because whoever's running BLS might want it to be lower than what it actually is. And that is going to hurt 70 million people receiving Social Security benefits, because that will mean that you're going to see a COLA that doesn't reflect what the actual economy is. So I want to know what you guys think about that. So let me know in the comments below. Okay, next comment is coming from Hank. And Hank says, Tesla guy and Trump found $2 trillion already. There's a question mark. They have not found $2 trillion. Okay, so that hasn't happened. Then they will give it to the taxpayers last June. Okay, I don't know if I understand exactly what you're saying there. And then what happened to the money for stimulus checks? Okay, so let's break this down. So when it comes to, and I think the stimulus check you're referring to is the Doge dividend check. And so the goal for the current administration was to have Doge be able to cut $2 trillion. If they could cut $2 trillion from spending, then they would be able to provide $5,000 per tax-paying household to the American people. That was the plan. Now, we saw some revisions. First, it was $2 trillion, and then they had to revise that and say, okay, we could probably save $1 trillion. And then they had to revise that again and say we could probably save about $150 billion. And right now they're between $150 billion to $200 billion. That's where they are. So they're nowhere close to the $2 trillion. So that $5,000 that you heard about, that's out the door. When it comes to the $1 trillion, there's nowhere close to the $1 trillion. So that's out the door. And so now we're looking at, I don't even know the new estimates. And even if they're going to put together some type of a dividend check, it will probably be maybe $1,000 if it's that. They haven't talked about this. You don't have politicians talking about this. You don't have people in Congress that were in favor of this. The Speaker Johnson, said he doesn't think this is a good idea. He doesn't think this is a good idea, and he also doesn't think that $600 rebate for tariffs, he doesn't think that's a good idea either. Because you have fiscally conservative Congress people right now that are saying, look, we don't want to spend any more money. We want to pay down the national debt. Now, it would have been nice if they would have said that prior to voting for this big, beautiful bill, but now they're saying it. We need to pay down the debt. So that money that you hear, the dividend checks, all the stimulus that you hear them talking about, that's not going to happen. The only way that we'll see some type of a stimulus is if our economy completely tanks. If our economy completely tanks, we will need a stimulus in order to jumpstart our economy again. And that's the only way that I can see it. So the whole Doge savings, and I'll do a future video. I want to follow up and do a video on Doge, just how much money they really saved, because we still don't have the accurate information when it comes to that. We don't know. And a lot of what we've been seeing, and this is unfortunate, but a lot of what we've been seeing is just smoke and mirrors. It's just, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to save this, we're going to save that. And then they just hope it goes away. They hope that we don't talk about it anymore. And you have reporters that just jump from one story to the next, and they don't come back to say, hey, what happened to the Doge dividend check? Or what's happening with the $600 stimulus check? This is going to be another thing, this rebate that they're talking about. They initially start talking about that, but guess what? In a month, 2 months from now, you're probably not going to hear anything else about it. And reporters don't call them out on it. That's what needs to happen. Because when you start calling these politicians out, well, look, President Trump, you said you were in favor of this rebate. What happened to it? And if President Trump tiptoes around that and says, well, we're still working on it, ask him in another month, and then ask him in another month. And then just keep asking him every month. Same question. But there's so many different stories that are out there right now. I mean, it's hard. You know, I have to admit, if a reporter only gets 1 or 2 questions to ask, they want to ask what's current. They don't want to go back and ask about something that was talked about a couple months ago. But that does need to happen, because what is going on now is we're just seeing a lot of stuff out there and nothing is going to get done. It's like when you have a task to do and you start doing that task and then you stop because something else happens and then something else happens. And then before you know it, you have all these different tasks that you need to do. None of them are complete. And the reason that they're not complete is because you got all this different stuff out there. And all you're trying to do is put out the fire for the most recent task that you had to do. And then the task that you were supposed to do a month ago, you just never do it. And you hope that no one calls you on it. You hope that your boss doesn't call you on it. And so that's what's going on here. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.